Chris Spiker, Antelope Valley florist, A.V. Nice. Today we're talking with Gail Minogue about coming to the Antelope Valley September 29th. So we're going to ask her a few questions. Hi,
Great,
Gail.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit. You're coming to Lancaster September 29th.
Yes, I am.
To our house, actually.
I am blessed. Yes.
Yeah,
thank
I've
you.
seen it on Facebook. And,
Yes.
so tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in numerology.
Oh, wow. Well, I began back in the 80s, and I began to study Pythagoras and ancient and sacred geometry. I actually have what people so-called epiphany moment. And I was in very mainstream life. I had just bought a home, was in the mainstream world, heading up a office in Texas, so it was totally unexpected, but I began the journey of sacred geometry, cycles, numbers. It eventually led me to numerology, which is where I do a lot of work now. But that's how I actually got into it. And then I combined it with my world, which was the commodity markets. And I got a licensed commodity broker in 1987. And I have been licensed ever since. And I follow the cycles and the trends. And then I combine them with these ancient numbers and sacred geometry. I'll put a plug in for my book.
There you go.
My book is called Divine Design: How You Created the Life You Are Living. And you can understand a lot more about your own blueprint, your name at birth, your date of birth, your timing, your house number, your license plate, all of that. What's happening in America? Well, some of these things I'm going to be including at this workshop. Some of it based on a lot of this ancient information, that there is no accident here.
Yeah.
And America has gone through a major, major change that began about 2007, but it's been in the works since about 30 years. So we have major cycles, and we have major cycles within cycles. So I like to take a look at what has happened, and what has really happened to America is we are revisiting the time of America's birth. So we're going back about 240 years, and we are looking at everything that we did, how far we've come, what have we done wrong, what do we need to correct. It's a house cleaning. It's taking a look at where we need to go forward and what we need to eliminate.
So is there a divine plan, or
Yes.
is it all just
Yes.
luck? Or?
Yes. No, the United States of America is what I call the experimental station. And it was placed here by what we'll call a group of people who are part of what another word would be a very hierarchy system that began in Europe hundreds of years ago before they ever landed here. But it was began with the idea that they would be an experiment to develop the individual. Because at that time, we had a collective individual. We had no individual, we had a collective of people around the world. And the rights of the individuals were completely ignored. So this was the experimental station for it. And it's gone through its cycles, it's gone through its challenges, it's gone through wars and civil wars and depressions and civil rights and all kinds of things. And it's under these specific cycles that things will be activated at certain times, like the crash of the financial system. Every financial system is approximately 28 years. So we finished one in 2008, and we're in the bottom of a brand new financial cycle. I will go over that during the workshop so you can see what the top of that cycle will be, and you can plan accordingly what's happened to the housing market as well, but it's all within this 28-year cycle. So this is a crash of some sort, an exposure of some sort. There are things that are happening now that have not happened in 240 years.
Wow.
So you have to go back to the time of 1760 to 1778. It is very similar. Most people, they haven't a clue what happened from 1760 to 1778, but it ended up in a revolutionary war and a birth of a brand new nation with, we know the history, and we say the Pledge of Allegiance, but and I'll go through some of the history and then where we are now, all the political changes, the economic changes, the financial changes, the spiritual changes, the religious changes,
We have the
and
election
cultural
coming up.
changes. Yes. That's a humdinger of an election, a humdinger. And you can see how polarized the country is. It's exactly where it needs to be right now at this moment in time to make the changes. So It's a big upheaval. So it kind of says, yes, we have a destiny. This is not an accident. We have a renaissance that began almost 300 years ago, which happens every 500 years. I'm going to go over all of that and tell you what was intended for this, as well as the big age of Aquarius that we have entered.
And you'll mention something about careers and jobs.
Oh yeah,
things
I'll tell
to
you.
do.
It's interesting because back in 1995 there was an author and a futurist. He has a think tank in Washington, Jeremy Rifkin, and he wrote a book, The End of Work, and that was 17 years ago. And it foretells all of this as what's going on and the replacement of the human factor. It's remember we used to have to use mules to do everything, and then we did human brawn, and now we're doing technology to replace us. But what do we do with us? And that's the big question mark. So I'm covering a lot of that.
So this is when robots take over all of our jobs.
Oh, robots will take over a lot of our jobs. They won't be able to take all of our jobs over, but they're going to be doing a lot of the work for us now. They already are, but now they're going to be much more comfortable to go mainstream. And the smart cars, so you're going to be able to have a totally different driving experience. All these things are going to be exponentially intensified over the next 10 to 15 years. Huge changes. Because the Aquarian age doesn't just move time forward, it jumps time forward. It jumps, it's electrifying. So that's what this is, and what's happened is a lot of people who really don't understand this are very affected emotionally by it. There's a lot of depression,
Right.
a lot of loneliness, because first of all, if you are the experimental station to develop the individual, then it's a lonely environment.
Yeah.
Because you've left the tribe in order to be an individual.
And I'm just thinking for myself, the way we get all of our information is the newspaper and the mass media, and then we're really lost.
Well, what it is sound bites, but there is still information out there, but investigative journalism or investigation of information or looking behind the person wearing the clothes has taken a back seat to quick news 24 hours a day. So it's something that we have to learn to think, and one of the things that most people don't do is think. So we're having to use the mind now more so than the emotions. And when we only work with the emotions, it will cost us. So now we have to go forward using the mind and thinking based on the shoulders of the prior age, or the age of Pisces and the age of the emotions. So we have to learn how to think, not only how to feel. And I use the expression of Margaret Thatcher, who did this movie, the Margaret Thatcher by Meryl Streep played her in The Iron Lady, where she mentions, I don't want you to feel, I want you to think. And then from thinking, you will do something. So it isn't enough to feel anymore. And this is what's affecting people. And they'll do anything to stay busy, not to have to think.
Yeah, I know that.
They'll entertain and they'll read and they'll read and they'll read, but they don't take time just to think. So this is all part of this push. The more we can think and understand the mind, and that's why we have diseases of the mind. This is all part of this trend of the